Hi, this is Joël from the Sonic Ventures podcast. I am just doing a little editing of our most current episode. It's episode 1 of season 3, and my conversation with Rob was concerning Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime. Now, this first episode of season 3 is very exciting for both of us because we're going to be taking the season into some different areas as we've done in the past. For those of you who do listen to our podcast, you know that we talk about concept albums. And we've certainly moved around and explored some of the possible areas of that idea. But this season, we're going to go in a few directions we haven't before. Now, for this particular conversation about mind crime, we went into some I think, very interesting areas about the album itself and our own experiences in listening to it. I personally have a very long, well, maybe not long, but it goes way back with my history with this album. So I was very pleased to have the opportunity to talk about it because I got to talk about things I've never talked about before. Now, what you see on this screen right now is actually not the specific episode itself, but it's what we call our aftercast. Now, what Rob and I do is we record an episode. It usually sits at about an hour and a half. And then after that, we turn the mics off and then we record ourselves some more and we continue the conversation. And that usually runs to about the same time. And those second recordings we call aftercasts. Now, aftercasts are basically not available through our regular podcast streaming platform services because we offer them on our Patreon page. So if you go to Patreon and you look up Sonic Ventures podcast, you can find the other aftercasts we've done. Now, if you are curious about what an aftercast is like, we did offer the first one through our streaming platform, and it is also available here on YouTube in our back catalog. We actually did, for season 2 last year, our first episode was Kate Bush's Hounds of Love. And so we have made that aftercast episode available so that you can get a sense of what the aftercasts are like. And the aftercasts certainly go into some very interesting areas in terms of where we get to in the conversation, because usually in that first episode, as Rob and I are fond of saying, we tend to maybe open some doors or peek into some possible areas of discussion, and we might just give a sense of where we might go in a conversation. So I really encourage you to check out our Patreon at Sonic Ventures Podcast on the Patreon platform and subscribe. By subscribing, you actually enable us to do two things. You enable us to sustain this podcast so that we can continue the platform we have now. And you also make it possible for us to grow. On the Patreon page, we also have a few other things we've offered up. One of them we call wildcards, and another one is what do we call the other thing? Oh yeah, vignettes. We call them vignettes. And so wild cards are just kind of solo conversations that Rob and I might have about a certain topic or something we might have thought about in terms of a conversation. And then the vignettes are a separate conversation that Rob and I have about a particular um, area of around an album or an idea. And actually, we also have a free vignette you can find here on YouTube platform in our back catalog. We did Iron Maiden's Power Slave. Is it a concept album? And so you can hear what that platform or that format is like. And so that is also available through our Patreon account. And if you do subscribe, you enable us to keep this podcast going. But you also have the potential, depending on what tier you pick, to be a part of choosing an album that we discuss. So last season, we had one of our Patreon subscribers made the suggestion of Tyler the Creator's Igor. And both Rob and I, that was a new album for us. And so we dove right into it and we had a great conversation. It really surprised both of us, I think, not only the conversation we had, but the album itself, we both found it very inspiring, because Rob and I are both not only music lovers, but we're also music creators. So we got a lot out of that experience. So again, if you do support us on Patreon, you can not only have the opportunity to ensure that we will be able to provide these conversations, but you can also add to the conversation by giving us suggestions for albums that we might do. And finally, if you have any suggestions or any thoughts, we're always happy to hear them. You can comment on this video. You can also send us an email at sonicventurespodcast at gmail.com. And we're also on Instagram, so you can reach us there as well. So this was just this video. It's actually the first video that I'm doing in this way to start opening up and branching out what we're doing here with Sonic Ventures. And thanks for listening.